Tennessee had a recruiting firework on the 4th of July. Who committed? Who was the latest commit for Tennessee? Plus, the top 10 running backs in Tennessee history since the year 2000. Interesting conversations coming up here on a Monday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols, your number one spot for Tennessee football news and entertainment weekday mornings wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available. I am your host, Cain. Appreciate you guys for making Locked On Vols your first stop, your first listen each and every single morning. We're brought to you in part by today, our friends over at Game Time, where you can download the Game Time app, create an account, put in the promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Our friends over at Game Time. Today's episode is going to be a fun one. We're going to break down Tennessee's recent recruiting commit, Darryl Rivers, tell you all about the defensive lineman, where Tennessee's class is impacted, where it stands about now, and you know that this run of recruiting is still hot and heavy. Who could be next for the University of Tennessee on the recruiting trail? That's coming up here in segment number 1. Top 10 running backs since the year 2000. Pretty tough conversation at times, right? I mean, Tennessee's had some really good running backs, even in the bleak years in the 2000s, or this century, I should say. That's coming up in segment number 2. And then an interesting story that I thought we'd discuss here in segment number 3 from CBS Sports about the top 25 worst coaching hires this century, and it makes you appreciate Josh Heupel all the more. That's coming up right now here on a Monday at Locked On Vols. Don't forget, X Tuesday, mailbag edition of the show is coming up tomorrow, so get in those questions, comments, concerns, whatever you guys have at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. All right, so Tennessee picked up the commit of defensive lineman Darryl Rivers. This came at about noon on Independence Day, Friday, July the 4th. Darryl Rivers has been last couple of months, been a big-time priority target for Rodney Garner on the defensive line. 6'5", 270 pounds, can kind of grow into playing in the interior, can kind of bump out and play that 5 technique potentially as well, but already really, really good size at 6'5", 270, and once you get into a collegiate strength and conditioning program, obviously it's only going to get better as he kind of changes his body a little bit. He is from Powder Springs, Georgia. So he's a Georgia native, according to the On3 industry rankings. Prospect number 649 in the country, a 3-star. The 68th ranked defensive lineman and the 72nd ranked player from the state of Georgia. And as we know, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, I mean, those are the states that are California. Those are the states that really have, a ton and tons and tons of prospects each and every single year. So another defensive lineman for the University of Tennessee, Matt Ray over at VolQuest.com, my colleague, caught up with Darryl Rivers prior to his commitment and said a big part of that was Rodney Garner. He said, quote, "They have a legendary coach in Rodney Garner on the defensive line. They have a very good team, just went to the playoffs. They were my dream school, so I knew that was definitely where I wanted to go." Kind of breaking down his decision of dream school with Tennessee. He goes on to talk about Coach Gardner. Quote, "Coach Gardner was a huge part of the process for me. He was really the answer for me. I didn't really know much about him before they offered me, but once they offered me, my coaches were telling me all about him. They were just telling me how good of a coach he is and everything. So once I got to know him, he had a huge impact." Also on Josh Heupel, quote, "He's a great coach. He's a funny guy. He was with me pretty much all day when he was on his official visit. Every little chance he got to talk to me, he did. It was really, really good." And it's talking about, his official visit to Tennessee, which he visited Tennessee a couple weeks ago. He said, quote, "The official visit up there put the cherry on the top. I was already kind of sure I wanted to go there, but I didn't want to commit where I had never been to before. But once I was able to get up there, I knew for sure." What is Tennessee getting in a defensive lineman like Darryl Rivers? Quote, "They're getting a player who is a leader, somebody who's going to speak up and bring everybody together. I am just a ball player," end quote. That was Tennessee recent commit, Darryl Rivers, to VolQuest.com's Matt Ray over the weekend. And, of course, he committed to the University of Tennessee on July the 4th, Independence Day. So this has been a nice little run for the University of Tennessee, and a little bit more on Darryl Rivers. He chose the University of Tennessee over the likes of Mississippi State, who kind of finished second in his recruitment. He went ahead and took official visits to Georgia Tech as well. Tennessee, he was on Tennessee's campus the last week of official visitors in the month of June. But it came down between Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Georgia Tech. He chose Tennessee over Mississippi State, who finished second. And Tennessee continues on. I mean, they had They had a stretch of 7 commits in 5 days. So I think, was it 3 commits last Tuesday? So 1 more on Friday. So that's 8 commits in the last, we'll call it 10 days or so. I mean, 8 commits in about 9 or 10 days. Tennessee football certainly on a bit of a recruiting run for sure. Now up to 17 commits in the class of 2023. And you look at kind of the breakdown and what this looks like. Tennessee now ranks 14th nationally. Okay, 14th nationally, so inside the top 15, 14th nationally, and 6th in the Southeastern Conference. Tennessee now has 17 commits, 1 5-star, 8 4-stars, and 8 3-stars. You look at the positional breakdown for the University of Tennessee. 1 quarterback in Faison Brandon. No running backs. Of course, Savion Hodder still very much in play there. 1 tight end, as it currently still stands, and Carson Snee. We'll see if he ends up moving out of the class or not. 2 wide receivers in Tyreek King and then Legend Bay. Legend Bay is more of an athlete. 2 offensive linemen in Gabriel Ascenda and Ed Baker. 3 edge players in Zach Groves, Kedrick Golston, and C.J. Edwards. Be interested to see where Zach Groves begins his career. Is he going to be at the traditional defensive end spot, the 5 technique, or I don't think he's going to be a Leo because it's already about 250 pounds, so you can bulk him up a little bit. I think Golston's got a ton of versatility to his game. He can play Leo. He can play traditional linebacker. C.J. Edwards is 1,000% a Leo, so some versatility there on the edge. Now 2 defensive linemen and Darrion Albert, who committed to Tennessee, one of 3 guys last Tuesday, and then, of course, Darryl Rivers on Friday. Linebacker T.J. White and Braylon Outlaw, so 2 linebackers. 2 safeties in K.J. McClain and Luke Thompson, the in-state prospect, and 2 corners, a pair of in-state guys, and Jamian Theodore and Zayden Anderson, who can absolutely fly, of course, from Greenville High School. So that's kind of the breakdown of what the class looks like now with the addition of Darryl Rivers to the class. And this has been pretty big this last week because Tennessee's had some edge players, right, committed to the class, but no interior defensive linemen, no just straight-up defensive linemen. And in the last week, Tennessee has added 2 of such, in Darrion Albert and Darryl Rivers. So, again, this is a class that's, starting to take shape a little bit. There's a lot of these prospects that are not going to be intriguing to fans. There's a lot of these prospects that Tennessee fans might be just saying, oh, another 3-star, and that's fine. The coaching staff likes these guys. The coaching staff, prioritizes some of these guys and wants to take some of these guys. But I will say this from a perspective look, and if you're trying to be, looking at the optics and all that, you've got to hit on some of these big hitters. You got to get Tristan Keys to flip, okay? You got to finish that one out. We'll see if Tennessee can do that. Savion Hyder, you got to get that one in the boat, okay? If you're going to take some of these 3-stars from an optics standpoint, again, this is just my opinion, right? I mean, I'm not a football coach. I'm not in that meeting room, and they don't give 2 craps what I have to say. But from an optics standpoint, if you're going to continue to take some of these lower-rated prospects that you really like, and there's nothing wrong with that, you got to win some of these big ones. TJ White was a win. Can you finish Braden Rouse? Can you hold on to Carson Sneed? Can you get Tristan Keys to flip? Can you get Savion Hyder to join you and beat out Michigan in that regard? So that's the question I have. Again, you're starting to see this recruiting class take shape. Josh Heupel gets all the hay in the barn, essentially, most of the hay in the barn, before they kick off for the start of the season. And now you're already there with 17 commits. Tennessee now has 17 commits. And again, 1 5-star, 8 4-star, 8 3-stars. Tennessee is ranked 14th in the nation, 6th in the Southeastern Conference, up 2 spots from last week. So doing a pretty good job. I'm intrigued to see how this class finishes. But Tennessee, again, adding another prospect on the defensive line and 3-star from the state of Georgia, Darryl Rivers, who committed to the University of Tennessee on Friday's Independence Day. All right, when we come back, interesting topic. And I would love to hear from you guys. You can make this a part of your mailbag show. You can bring in, or you can just write in @_Cain or @LockedOnVols, comment on the show, just a statement, whatever you want, if you want to contribute to the mailbag show. But I want to know from you, who are the top 10 running backs this century for Tennessee? Going back to 2000, and again, I'll mention this again in the segment, the way I did this was they had to have started their Tennessee career in at least 2000. Couldn't have ended in 2000 something, like started in 97, ends in 01, started in 98, ends in 02. You got to start at least into the 2000s and end of the 2000s. Give me a top 10. It was a fun little exercise that I kind of did in show prepping for this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. All that and more coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. So go ahead and stay tuned here on a Monday morning. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head on to the ball game with some friends or family? Maybe it's a game day and you're suddenly realizing you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, merchandise, drinks, or even invite a bigger group to come with you, right? Game Time makes all that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch or to the beginning of the game, which is incredible. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, so you know exactly what you're getting before you click purchase, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. I love that lowest price guarantee. If I can find a cheaper ticket in the same section on another app or another website, I mean, 110% guarantee. They're going to refund you that. Or they're going to credit you that. That's a pretty good deal of having your back, right? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create the account, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, put in the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So I saw another Locked On College podcast doing this topic. Shout out Locked On Auburn. And I thought it was really interesting, especially with all the rich history Tennessee has in terms of running the football. And, the topic for that pod, or at least what I saw on social media, was who's been the best running back for Auburn since the year 2000. So I thought I'd expand on that a little bit. Let's do top 10. And this can be, you can certainly make it your own, right? I mean, I'm making it my own, and number one on my list is going to be Dylan Sampson. Why? Because Dylan Sampson just broke about every single season rushing record you could possibly have at the University of Tennessee. Now, is Dylan Sampson going to have the longest NFL career of any of these guys? I don't know. Is Dylan Sampson the best running back or best athlete of some of these guys? Probably not. But I'm making it my own. It's hard for me, and I recognize the recency bias here, and that's fine. But I base a lot of my topics and arguments on stats, and stat wise, there's some volume there. He was RB1, man, and he was the workhorse. I recognize all that too. But stat wise, he just had the best single season ever for a Tennessee running back. So he comes in at number one on my list. But there's been some ballers. There's been some very, very good running backs here at the University of Tennessee. Who's been the top 10 since the year 2000? Remember, in terms of this conversation I'm having right now, they had to have started their Tennessee career in the year 2000 or later. So there's some really good ones. Travis Stevens, Travis Henry. I mean, some of those that started in the late 90s and ended in the early 2000s. I guess Travis Henry actually ended in 2000. But nonetheless, here's kind of the list that I came up with. Let's go in reverse order here. And towards the back, I'm kind of, I'm doing a top 10 here. Towards the back, there's some of these guys you might say, oh, they don't deserve to be on the list. And maybe there's some other ones like Jabari Davis who didn't make this list, but you knew he was an absolute, bulldog, right? I mean, he's a volunteer, but he was an absolute dude on the goal line, dude on fourth down and all that. But there could be some other guys that didn't make this stat-wise, but a couple of guys that really, had some pretty good careers here at Tennessee. Number 10 on my list for best running backs Tennessee history since the year 2000, Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler, I consider a VFL. Everybody's got a different opinion on that and everything. He did transfer out, but he transferred out using his COVID year of eligibility after all the crap that went through, after the last season in 2020 with Jeremy Pruitt. He played 4 years here. He graduated here, and then he left and finished his year his with that extra year that he got at Carolina and went on to the NFL. I consider him a VFL. I think it's different if you graduated and then you're using that extra year that you weren't normally going to have and then transferring out. So anyway, that's a separate conversation for another day. But Ty Chandler, over 4 years at Tennessee, he accumulated over 2,000 rushing yards. I did not know that, honestly, before looking this up. I would not have guessed that. I did not think that he had career 2,000 rushing yards. In fact, he had 2,046 rushing yards throughout his career here at Tennessee. Started in 2017 and, of course, ended in 2020. Had 16 touchdowns from scrimmage. 13 on the ground, 3 through the air. Ty Chandler comes in at number 10 for me in this conversation of running backs at Tennessee since 2000. Number 9, I think this is such a great example of a guy that if you just come in, you buy in, you work hard. I wouldn't say he's the most durable guy, but also finding a guy that can just find success in the Josh Heupel offense. That's Jabari Small. I mean, I know he's still hanging out. I think last time I checked, he was on the practice squad for the Titans. I remember watching him in preseason, last summer into fall. Jabari Small just came in, and he was a compiler, right? I mean, he just came in. He was RB1 for the most part for Tennessee for 3 of his 4 years before he gave way to Jaylen Wright there as a senior. Jabari Small finished his Tennessee career with 2,122 yards and 26 total touchdowns. I mean, he had a ton of touchdowns. I want to say he had like 15 touchdowns one year. He had 24 rushing touchdowns total in his career. Really, really, really talented running back in terms of just right place, right time, worked hard, bought in, and compiled. And that's what he did. So Jabari Small, stats-wise, comes in at number 9 for me, and being one of the top 10 running backs this century for Tennessee. Number 3 is going to be Jaylen Wright, and that's interesting because he went off his senior year only on 110 rushing attempts, mind you, but he ended up surpassing Jabari Small with 2,297 career rushing yards, 18 total touchdowns throughout his career with Tennessee. How much better could Jaylen Wright have been if he got the football like Dylan Sampson got his last year in 2023 that Dylan Sampson did in 2024? I don't know. I'm curious. Maybe what made Jaylen Wright so effective was he was always fresh. That's always one of those great debates we can always have. But Jaylen Wright had a phenomenal junior campaign, then went off to the NFL draft. So Jaylen Wright comes in there at number 8 for me. Number 7 is a guy that doesn't appear in the top 20 all-time rushing yards list for Tennessee, but he was just a baller, and I remember him from my childhood, and he was very, very good. And he split time with Cedric Houston, who will appear later in this list. But Gerald Riggs Jr. was a very good running back at Tennessee, ran for over 1,000 yards one year, and really, really, really good career for Tennessee, but also split a lot of time with Cedric Houston, split a lot of time with some other backs as well. So I feel like his stats-wise were never as good as they could be. But Gerald Riggs Jr. comes in at number 7 for me because I just remember him being an absolute baller. Number 6 for me is Montario Hardesty. Had a phenomenal senior campaign in 2009. Never played for Lane Kiffin, but ended up going and coaching for Lane Kiffin when he was at FAU, I believe. Nonetheless, Montario Hardesty finished with 2,391 career rushing yards, 27 total touchdowns. And if not for injuries, man, who knows how good his career would have been, not only in college, but in the NFL as well. Montario Hardesty is one of those guys that I feel like is often forgotten about, but he was a really, really good player here at Tennessee and did some things in the National Football League for sure. So Montario Hardesty comes in at number 6 for me on this list. He's number 10 all-time leading rusher for Tennessee in the history of the program. Number 5 is going to be Cedric Houston, and this is when I started falling in love with Tennessee football, right? I mean, back in the early 2000s, I was old enough. I mean, I'd watch football, but I was now old enough to kind of like memorize players and memorize stats and kind of nerd out about this stuff. And Cedric Houston, along with or Gerald Riggs, were the running backs for Tennessee when that phase started for me. Again, I remember watching football games prior to that, but when I could start nerding out and all that. Cedric Houston, 7th all-time leading rusher for Tennessee, 2,634 yards all-time, 18 career touchdowns. Cedric Houston was a baller, and he had a couple years in the National Football League, specifically with the New York Jets that I remember. But I thought Cedric Houston was certainly deserving to be on this list in the top 5 for me of best running backs since the year 2000. Number 4 is very controversial. Very controversial. But I'll tell you what, man, he played, 2.5 years essentially here, because towards the end of his junior year, he quit and moved on, and there was some drama there. There was some behind the scenes there and stuff. I obviously wasn't covering the team when this happened, but Jaylen Herd was a phenomenal football player here. Jaylen Herd, if he would have just finished out his career at Tennessee, would have held every rushing record there was. Easily. Really, really good player. Got hurt, obviously had to retire. He tried to make a couple different comebacks to the NFL playing wide receiver, finished his collegiate career at Baylor as a wide receiver. Really, really good athlete from the state of Tennessee. Very good running the football for Tennessee. Again, in basically 2.5 seasons, guys, finished number 6 all-time for Tennessee's rushing leaders, 2,638 rushing yards, 26 career touchdowns, 20 on the ground, 6 through the air. Just a really, really good football player. Again, if he would have just finished out his Tennessee career, he would have owned every single rushing record there was. Number 4 is Jaylen Herd. Number 3 is Alvin Kamara, and again, make it your own, right? His stats never really flourished at the University of Tennessee. However, he had some big-time moments. He shared the backfield with Herd a little bit. But what he's gone on to do in the National Football League, I mean, it's hard to argue that he's not one of the better running backs this century for Tennessee, albeit he flourished, he bloomed in the National Football League for sure. But make it your own. Alvin Kamara is going to be on this list for me. He comes in at number 3. Number 2, also a little controversial, and he kind of fell off big time his senior year. Not a very good senior year at all. He came on originally, I think it was Gerald Riggs that got hurt, and Arian Foster, as a true freshman, finished that 2005 season and just balled out. And then he was a stud in 06. He was a stud in 07, and then he tailed off there in 08. Still, second all-time in rushing leaders for Tennessee, 2,964 career rushing yards, 25 total touchdowns, and he went on to be an all-pro back at points in time. So I think he was on the all-decade team for the Houston Texans or for the National Football League there for a little bit. Really, really good professional career, and then it tailed off as well. But nonetheless, I mean, Arian Foster can't argue with stats, right? Can't argue with stats, and he was, one of the best running backs to ever come through here, specifically in the last 25 seasons. And then again, number 1's me, and that can be recency bias, and that's fine. Make it your own. Dylan Sampson had the single best Tennessee football, season ever for a running back, and that's why he's going to be at the top of my list. I'm intrigued to see how long Dylan Sampson can stick in the National Football League, what his role can be, what he can grow into, but certainly he finished off his Tennessee career on a high note and was just a phenomenal football player. So I made it my own. You make it your own. Who are the top 10 running backs in Tennessee football history since the year 2000? Had to begin their Tennessee career in 2000. That is the only caveat I have here. A lot of great running backs, Henry, Stevens, Jamal Lewis. I mean, come on, guys. There's so many different great running backs that I'm excluding from this list. This is from beginning their career in 2000 and on. Number 10, Ty Chandler. Number 8, Jabari Small. Number 9, Jabari Small. Number 8, Jalen Wright. Number 7, Gerald Riggs Jr. Number 6, Montario Hardesty. Number 5, Cedric Houston. Number 4, Jaylen Herd. Number 3, Alvin Kamara. Number 2, Arian Foster. Number 1, Dylan Sampson. I would love to hear from you guys at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. All right, when we come back, if you didn't already know, as a fan base, you should be super, super lucky and grateful that you have Josh Heupel. Why? Because of the top 25 worst coaching hires this century, according to the CBS Sports, Tennessee has 2 of them. Tennessee appears on the list twice. Not great. Makes you super thankful for Josh Heupel. We'll tell you what they had to say about those 2 individuals, which I'm sure you can guess who I'm talking about when we come back right here on Locked On Vols. The top 25 worst coaching hires at the Division I football level this century. CBS Sports put out this article. Was it over the weekend, over the holiday weekend? I don't know when it was, but it was in the last couple of days. It's recent. And the author goes through and kind of ranks who have been the worst coaching hires, saying that if we can, have a list, I'm sure they had a list, I just missed it, of the top 25 best coaching hires this century, surely to goodness you could have a list of the worst coaching hires in Tennessee history, or in college football history this century. So the criteria, obviously win-loss had a big role in it, but also, did the hire make sense in the first place? Did the coach's predecessor have any success? Does the program have to have the resources to win? And why didn't it work? All those factors went into kind of accumulating this list of the top 25 worst coaching hires in college football this century. A lot of names on this list went through, and we'll kind of briefly look at the list as a whole, but we're going to go down to where Tennessee makes the cut. Tennessee, at least one of a few, or at least one of 2 programs that have had 2 coaches on this list. Purdue had 2 coaches on this list. Kansas has had 2 coaches on this list. I think Washington maybe have been on this list twice. Nonetheless, nope, Washington only on this list 1 time. Nonetheless, Tennessee appears on this list twice. The first at number 10. Tennessee had two in the top 10. Yikes. Derek Dooley coming in at number 20 on this list. 15-21 was his overall record at Tennessee, and this is what the article of CBS Sports says about the hire of Derek Dooley. Quote, Dooley had the pedigree, but not the resume when Tennessee hired Vince Dooley's son to replace Lane Kiffin. Dooley had only made a single bowl game and had a 17-20 record at Louisiana Tech before making the jump to Knoxville that proved to be too big for him. Dooley went 3-2 against Kentucky and Vanderbilt, 0-6 against Georgia and South Carolina, finished 6th in the SEC East twice, and lost 14 of his last 15 SEC games. Dooley led Tennessee to its first back-to-back losing seasons in 100 years and set the program back years. Yeah, you can say that. Again, Dooley was hired. So Kiffin left. Kiffin was here in 2010. So it was December, January, whatever. I mean, it was the worst possible time when Kiffin left Tennessee because the USC continued to strike out on everybody else that they wanted. I remember the timing not being great. It's kind of like losing your starting quarterback on the last day of spring practice, but only, I mean, even magnified if you can, because you're having to hit a whole program reset. So it's very much more magnified than the Nico Iamaleava situation. But the timing wasn't great. I remember that. I mean, I was a senior in high school. I was at one of my buddy's house. Shout out Colin Bradley, Bainbury, Tennessee. Shout out Bainbury. I mean, I was over there hanging out, and we saw the news. And I mean, obviously, I'm a high schooler. I'm not in the media, but I just remember watching that whole thing go about, and then in the days and weeks that led up to the coaching hire of Darryl Dooley. And as a high school senior, I'm sitting here like, that makes no sense. Or a high school junior, I'm sitting here like, that makes no sense. Why on earth is Tennessee hiring that guy? I mean, I remember the talk of does Tennessee want him to be the athletic director because he was the AD at Louisiana Tech? I was like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense a little bit, right? To be the head football coach at Tennessee, what? I remember as a high school junior sitting here like, what on earth are they doing? That makes no sense. So part of the reason in this list, kind of did the coaching hire make sense? No, it did not. It made no sense. Kippy Brown should have been the head coach, at least, and I understand you can't really tack interim tags on there and everything, but at least on an interim tag basis, Kippy Brown should have been the head coach at Tennessee that year. So nonetheless, I thought it was ridiculous as a high school junior that they hired Darryl Dooley, and obviously his tenure here at Tennessee was not good. 15-21 overall. He lost 14 of his last 15 SEC games, the first back-to-back losing seasons in Tennessee history in 100 years. Woof. How in the world can you do any worse than that? Well, Tennessee also hired Jeremy Pruitt prior to the 2018 season, and we know how that ended. His record at Tennessee was 5-19 overall. There's an asterisk there because, of course, there's some vacated wins. This is what this article at CBS Sports has to say of Jeremy Pruitt being the 7th worst coaching hire this century. Quote, Pruitt was the end result of an embarrassing coaching search that featured a fan revolt over the expected hire Greg Schiano, the firing of athletic director John Curry, and almost hires of Mike Leach. Pruitt had the SEC pedigree, but quickly proved he was no Kirby Smart. His time in Knoxville not only didn't meet expectations, but invited serious NCAA scrutiny into the program that was allegedly handing out money to players' parents in fast food bags. In the end, Tennessee was found to have committed hundreds of NCAA violations, and multiple coaches, including Pruitt, received multi-year show cause penalties. So this is interesting. Obviously, that was a horrible hire, and I get all that, in retrospect. If I was doing this list, I would at least flip him and Dooley because Josh Heupel saved the program. Don't get me wrong. The end of the Jeremy Pruitt era could have set the program back 10-plus years easily. Darryl Dooley set the program back years, okay? Kiffin leaving set the program back years, big time. If Kiffin would have stayed, who knows how much trouble Tennessee would have been. It would have been fun, though. They would have won some games. But my point is, I would have flipped Pruitt and Dooley simply because Josh Heupel. You found the right guy. You found the right AD. The AD went out and tried to hire a couple different guys, went back to his old stomping grounds, got a guy that he loved, and Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel comes up here. Josh Heupel implements his staff, his system. You have a holdover. He goes and gets quarterback in Joe Milton, who played a big role here at Tennessee, but not in 2021, even though he started the season. Hendon Hooker, who Jeremy Pruitt got from the transfer portal, just takes one quarterback to hit big in a system, and you can accelerate a rebuild. And that's exactly what Tennessee did. With the transfer portal, you can accelerate a rebuild because you can go out and get a quarterback that fits your system. And essentially, Pruitt got Tennessee that quarterback, but Heupel's allowed him to flourish. And because of what Josh Heupel's done with the program in the last 4 seasons, is why I would at least flip Jeremy Pruitt and Darryl Dooley, because Josh Heupel's been the savior to Tennessee football here. Tennessee football had a winning record. Everybody, a lot of national plaudits thought Tennessee would have a losing record for the next 5 years. Wouldn't go bowling for the next 5-6 seasons. Tennessee had a winning record and went to a bowl game that next year in 2021. Tennessee won 10 games, won 11 games, went to the Orange Bowl and won in 2022. Had a Biletnikoff Award winner. Should have had a Heisman finalist. Led the nation in offense. 2 years after all this crap went down, not even 2 years on the calendar, Tennessee won or Tennessee was the Tennessee had the best offense in the country. 2023, you had an 8-4 season, went to the Citrus Bowl and won. 2024, went to the college football playoffs. Josh Heupel saved this program. So the fact that this century, Tennessee is responsible, according to this article, for 2 of the worst 25 head coaching hires. Both in the top 10, number 10 and number 7. And to think where you are right now. Sure, there's a lot of angst out there. Unproven at quarterback, unproven at wide receiver, replacing a lot on the offensive line, this, that, and the other. I get all that. We're in the weeds every single day. We're fans, right? I mean, that's what we do. But this program is in such a great position. Fans getting upset about 3 stars getting commits from 3 stars and all that. Like, that's all fair. That's fine. But this program, health-wise, boy, it is in a great, great spot because of Josh Heupel. Man, Jeremy Pruitt, number 7. I would have flipped him and Derek Dooley. I think Derek Dooley was actually a worse hire for sure. In case you're wondering, the worst hire in the last 25 years, according to CBS Sports, is tied for first. Alabama's hiring of Mike Price and Pittsburgh's hiring of Michael Haywood. Number 3 was Ellis Johnson of Southern Miss. Number 4 was Chad Morris of Arkansas. Number 5 was Charlie Weiss of Kansas. Goes to show you that NFL greats can't get it done. At least NFL great play callers can't get it done at the college level sometimes. Ty Winningham at Washington, number 6. Pruitt at number 7. Les Miles, Kansas, number 8. Ron Turner, FIU at number 9. Derek Dooley, number 10. Greg Robinson, Syracuse, number 11. Ryan Walters, Purdue, number 12. John Embry, Colorado, number 13. Darrell Hazel, Purdue, number 14. Willie Taggart, Florida State, number 15. Mike Jinks, Bowling Green, number 16. Kevin Sumlin, Arizona, number 17. Of course, he had a lot of success at A&M. Carl Durrell, Colorado, number 18. Colorado appeared on this list a couple of times. There's Brian Harsin, coming in number 19 with Auburn. Charlie Strong, that's recent, Texas, number 20. Chris Ash, Rutgers, number 21. Jeff Collins, Georgia Tech, number 22. Mike Riley, Nebraska, number 23. Steve Addazio, Colorado State, number 24. And Mike Loxley, New Mexico, number 25. Interesting stuff there. And again, it's not painting Tennessee in a good light, but it goes to show you just what Josh Heupel's meant to this program, which is phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal stuff. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. Mailbag edition of the show, that's coming up tomorrow. So please, @_Cainer, @Locked On Vols. If you're watching on YouTube, you can comment as well. Send me in some questions, some comments, some concerns, whatever you guys have. I'll do my best to answer those on tomorrow's Locked On Vols. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.